and welcome to the Taco Cast. I'm Crystal.
I'm Will.
You're our audience on this lovely Sunday, and it is a lovely Sunday where we are, and I hope you're having a lovely Sunday as well. So today we have a slightly different take for today's episode. We are going to be discussing the credible threats that are out there for the inauguration. Not all of them, clearly, because there's a bunch. But we're going to be discussing, there's some misinformation going around saying basically that everything is fine. Everything is not fine.
Not even close.
A number of the groups that I'm affiliated with are advising everybody in the group to not attend the inauguration or any events that are happening in the states that you may live in around the time of the inauguration because of the credible threats of violence. People who were originally planning counter protests and protests, and even just a celebratory barbecue. A lot of places are advising that you not, because it may make you a target. Here in the state that we live, there is a group that has been compiling a list of people that they consider to be enemies of Trump. It's not just businesses and political groups. They have a long list of individuals on it as well. So these are, this is happening. I've seen it.
And we're not trying to scare you. And what we want to talk about is the actual credible reports that are coming out. And we're not just reading the news off to you. I've reached out to several people I know who are in federal law enforcement, along with local authorities in different capitals around the United States. This is not, and I repeat, please understand this, this is not just in Washington, D.C. that these groups are planning to protest, or they are planning operations that are borderlining right now from the outside looking in are extreme, and they're planning on or preparing for violence. Case in point, yesterday afternoon, an individual was stopped at a checkpoint in Washington, D.C. He had over 500 rounds of ammunition, and he was planning to get to an area within the safe zone where people who are there to watch the inauguration will be gathering. That was his ultimate plan. They found notes in his truck that actually said he was trying to get to this area. He had weapons, he had the ammunition, not for one type of weapon, but he had ammunition for multiple types of weapons, and he didn't have those weapons. So he was bringing ammunition for some other reason into the safe zone. And this is something that the ATF, the FBI, the Secret Service, and Homeland Security are really worried about. And there are some very credible threats that these people have made after the Senate, takeover, and they have made online, what was it, Parlay, before Parlay was taken down. How would you describe Parlay?
So at the outset, it sounded like a good idea. I even had a Parlay account. Was thinking about switching my primary social media activity to Parlay. Having been subjected to Facebook's rather overzealous policing of commentary.
Raise your hand if you've been put in Facebook jail.
For using the phrase sea lion.
I was put in Facebook jail for talking about my Second Amendment rights.
So it seemed like a good idea.
And reporting a gentleman, I reported a gentleman who was feeding bleach to his minor children, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 7-year-old. He was feeding them bleach. I reported him. They put me in Facebook jail. But go ahead. What is Parlay? Or Parlay?
It was a social media platform that was almost completely uncensored. There was no content moderation at all. When I got there, however, I found a number of the I didn't find anything that I didn't find distasteful. So I was like, well, it was great in theory, but the people who are already here, not for me. Not for all that I am an anarchist. I'm not really interested in actually setting things on fire. Does not appeal to me. So, contrary to popular belief, the takedown of Parley was not just due to what happened on the 6th. Amazon had been working or trying to work with the administrators of Parley to get them to do some kind of content moderation. And leading up to what happened at the Capitol, Amazon had actually documented 250 credible threats of violence that they took to the moderators of Parley, and they were like, this is not acceptable. People are literally planning to murder people on your site. You can't fucking let this happen. And Parley was like, First Amendment, we can do whatever we want. And then the 6th happened, and then Amazon was like, okay, well, do it on your own dime then. We're not hosting your service.
Right.
Is it because they care about the government? Probably not. It's probably just to cover their own ass because they'll be held legally liable for the death threats that were made and carried out and planned.
So when I was talking to friends of mine who were in federal law enforcement, and we won't get into mentioning their names or what agencies they work for, but we have a lot of friends and family who work in law enforcement. And when I was speaking to them, the threats that they were talking about, the credible threats, have come from Parley, or however that's pronounced right, Parley, along with individual messaging and websites that these groups control or operate under. And there's an overwhelming threat, and theme to all of their websites. They either believe that they have been persecuted themselves, that their way of life, their freedoms are being suppressed. They also believe that the government, to a large extent, is too large and is out to get them as individuals. So yes, there is some extreme paranoia there, but they also believe, and there is an underwhelming theme of Christianity, or they call themselves Christian brothers, and sisters. But underneath that, they also believe in superiority and that they are the master race upon society.
There's a ton of
and
races.
I've listed out here on this sheet the topmost number one groups across the nation, according to the ATF, FBI, Southern Poverty Law Center. These are groups that are known and are considered domestic terrorists or supporters of domestic terrorism against America. And every single one of these groups that is on this list have all made credible threats against Biden, against the inauguration, and against any one of the Democratic Party across the United States.
Let's also put a disclaimer on there. Not just the Democratic Party. There are a ton of people who don't actually have one party or the other political affiliation,
right?
Who have been vocally opposed to certain things that were happening in the administration, who were opposed to the continual false rhetoric of a stolen election, and those people also have been targeted.
The number one group on this list has made credible threats. And they also set up a hangman noose at the United States Senate Capitol grounds to hang and kill Mike Pence.
Is that the Proud Boys?
No, they are called the Wolverine Watchmen.
How do they get these names?
I really believe that I believe that a lot of these groups start off as groups of people who read too many comic books or something, because there's an overwhelming third.
I read a ton of comic books.
I mean, comic books are great and everything, but some people, they already are borderlining on the conspiracy, and they're nuts, and they have borderline personality disorders.
Jesus Christ!
And then they read a comic book and they're like, oh. But the Wolverine comes from was it Red Dawn?
Wolverines? I love loved that movie.
Yeah,
That's so
but
awesome.
their
Wolverine.
logo was from the actual movie,
Oh, they know
or
movies aren't
they
real,
used
right?
it as a selling point.
Did they know movies aren't real?
Well, I don't think a lot of these people are based in reality.
Do they have a sister, the Badger Patrol?
No, they are almost exclusively a men's only group. If there are women, they're like followers, I guess, because
And hardcore anti-vaxxers.
well, yeah, but on their website and their social media accounts, they only speak of the brotherhood that is here to take back our country.
Well, there's
They
also
believe
a rift recently.
they
Wasn't
believe and they want nothing more than to start a second civil war. That is where they think that we have to go to make everything right. Now, I want to make it absolutely clear before we get all kinds of hate from people out there. You know, she might be of one political party and I might be of the other, or she may have one set of beliefs, and governing, and I may have another. We're not picking on one individual group here. We are talking about credible threats, people that have made in groups that have made credible threats against the government and individuals within the government. And this is something very, very serious. You have your right to freedom of expression, and freedom of speech. These people have gone way beyond that. When they say they want to kill the vice president of the United States of America because they believe he was too chicken shit, and that is their what they said, too chicken shit to do what is right. Even though if you read the Constitution, there's no room for Mike Pence to actually stop the actual or do anything. Just because one person said he was too chicken shit to do it, and we know who said that, but they took it upon themselves to, yeah, he did it. He didn't do it. He should have done it. They've ramped up their group, with this rhetoric within themselves.
And let's be clear that when we're talking about credible threats, we're not talking about someone who's like, God, I hate that guy, I want to kill him. Yeah. I think everybody has said that about something, or like someone, in a heat, just like, oh my God, I want to kill him, blah. And nobody really means that. You don't. You're just mad. You're like, oh my God, I just want to kill you so much. I talk about shanking this guy all the time.
It'll happen eventually.
But when we're talking about credible threats and what they're talking about doing, we're not just talking about people who, in the heat of a moment, or that they were, in a very passionate situation, said some things. We're talking about people who said, I don't like this guy, I want to kill him, and then in the same platform, they talked about when, where, and how. So it's gone from just saying something, oh my God, I want to kill that guy,
taking
to,
actions.
and this is how I'm going to do it. And that's the distinction between somebody who's just saying something that I'm sure most people have said in a heated argument, oh my God, I'm going to kill you, get out of my kitchen. Specifically yesterday.
Yeah.
To becoming a credible threat. And that's, when they have planned it. They have talked about when, where, and how they're going to do it, and who they're going to target. And at that point, this becomes a credible threat. Especially when these people, even doing a little bit of background research, you realize that they have the means to do so. It's not just empty talk.
Right. And like I said, the first couple that are on this list here, they not only talked about actual, threats towards the incoming president, outgoing vice president, other people within the Republican Party and Democratic Party, that they have sought out as people who are restricting their lives. They have they've gone from beyond talk to gathering resources and then planning and then mobilizing. And that's where they're at right now, is they have already started demobilization. They have caught a couple of these people, and the ATF and FBI, according to their terror alert that has been passed through in their industry along with Homeland Security, these top groups have gone silent. They are off the radar right now, and that's what is really scary to the government, and should be scary to everyone. is when a group is ramping up and they talk and they mobilize and then they put resources together and then they vanish off of the internet, cell services, everything. They go completely dark. That's when you need to worry, because it's not just a threat anymore. Now it's an intimate danger. That these people are, okay, where are they? Where did they go? Can we find them in a group? And these people don't look like a bunch of, hippies from the 60s with long hair, and, straggly clothes. They blend in a crowd they look just like me or you or anybody out there watching. And they may look like anybody. And how do you find them? They may have, a Biden T-shirt on and a Biden hat on, and underneath that,
That's probably how you're going to spot them, because most people who support Biden aren't wearing Biden shirts.
this is true. But
Because to be fair,
that's a joke, everyone.
Biden doesn't actually have very many supporters. A lot of people that I know that voted for Biden.
Well, he obviously
want
has
to.
some support if he won a popular vote.
No, he doesn't really have supporters. He has people who voted for him because they liked him just a little bit more than the other guy. There's a ton of people I know who were like, fuck, fine, I'll vote Biden. And that's literally how he got their vote. Nobody was like, oh yeah, Biden, woo!
I voted for Mickey Mouse.
I voted for myself.
You wrote yourself in?
I make a great
I wrote in
president.
Mickey Mouse.
I
See?
didn't write in myself.
We didn't support either one of the two people because I didn't want either one to be, the president.
Nobody votes for me.
Well, if you should have told me, we could have gathered all of our votes together and we could have committed mail fraud or voting fraud. But that's beside the point. But these groups, though, they've gone silent, and that's really scary, especially if you're in law enforcement right now, as to where they are, and as the general public who may be gathering. And they're not just going for D.C. These people are all over the United States.
There have been credible threats logged in all 50 states.
Against every single capital or anywhere where people may be gathering to either a private party or small gathering. They are planning everything. And the worst part is some of these groups, they know in the past they have caught them with everything from dynamite to high explosives to surface to air missiles illegally.
A couple months ago, one group was planning on kidnapping a congresswoman.
That was the Wolverine Watchmen. They were involved with that. They're the ones who.
Weren't the Proud Boys also ancillary involved with that?
I don't know about the Proud Boys, but they are on the list, and like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the Proud Boys are listed underneath just about every single law enforcement agency out there, federal, state, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, and quite a few other groups, all list the Proud Boys as a domestic terrorist group or supporter of domestic terrorism. Either it happened with people from their group who have been involved with domestic terrorism, and we're not talking about stockpiling weapons. If we were talking about just people who stockpiled weapons as a domestic terrorist, you might as well come to my house, because we have a lot. And
well, now we're on an FBI watch list.
I'm just saying. I mean, so many people get me wrong. They already have doing a little evil people from the other side of the aisle, but we're not. We're just not. We believe in voting for the person, or the party, or somebody who's going to do the damn job that we need them to do.
I fantasize that one day we'll have an election where it's going to be a hard choice because both candidates are so awesome.
Where you have to make the hard decision between which one you want more.
Because they're both so good, and my gosh, they're so good.
In politics these days, though, we get which douchebag do you want to vote for?
Politics nowadays, it's like, would you like piece of crap A or would you like piece of crap B? This one's got a half digested M&M
This one grabs women in the pussy, and this one, well, maybe a pedophile.
I think the other one's also it's like pedo and pedo light.
Oh, pedo and pedo light.
Yeah, well, see, like, one of them's actually been sued for rape of a minor, and one of them, everybody's just like, I'm getting some hinky vibes. So it's like, one, like, we know, one, we're pretty sure.
Yeah, but all right, so back to the credible and threats that are out there. I don't know what to do. I mean,
What do you do?
I know, and there is nothing out there. The only thing the government or the news agencies are telling people to do is just don't go. Don't go to to any kind of gathering. Don't go to even a party before or after the inauguration. Don't gather in areas where they may be able to target you. And I'm like, okay, well, great. I won't go to Washington D.C., especially since I live across the United States from Washington D.C. That's cool. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute. Well, there's credible threats here at this capital, this one, and I'm like, oh, great. Now I'm surrounded, by people who basically want to start a revolution, and it's scary because you don't know where they are, you don't know what they're capable of, and I'm sitting here and I'm looking through this list of where, and there's maps that you can go online and look up hate groups and where these groups are on the map in the United States, and they're in every single group, state, from Hawaii, Alaska, and every one of the lower 48 states, Puerto Rico, Guam, they're everywhere. If anybody lives there, you can get a hate group in that state, and these people find little niches within the actual state, and they to draw people in, and then once they draw people in, then they slowly build to the point where it's like they let them know what their rhetoric is about and what they see as
You
the
don't
evil.
start off with the crazy.
Right.
You start out with the
you
group.
never go full
Mhm.
crazy right up front.
You start out with the group identity. You find somebody who's disenfranchised or somebody who's not sure of their identity. They're looking for their place in the world, and you're like, hey, come join us. And you offer them an identity. And then once you get them in, you slowly start feeding them a little bit of the crazy to see how they react.
Do you know what my friend told me? I won't tell you what agency he works with, but he told me, he put it this way to me. He goes, the way that these groups operate right now in America is the same way the Klan did after the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they built up their actual membership across America and became as large of a group, an organization as the Ku Klux Klan did. Is they're using the same exact tactics to get people to join their organizations, and then slowly, give them their overall mission. But don't ever go full crazy up front.
Mm-mm.
You slowly let them know what you're all about.
And it's easy to get people, especially in today's climate, because it's a really uncertain time period, and everybody is. To a certain extent, I blame somebody. If you join one of these groups and you see what they're all about and you're just like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with it, you're an adult. It's your fault, okay? I'm not going to give you a pass. But on the other hand, I understand how people can get taken in. We're in uncertain times. People aren't sure of their place in the world or, how they're just going to get through their day. They've got families they got to take care of. And somebody offers them what seems to be an easy solution.
Yeah.
Bro, I know you're struggling. It's not your fault. It's those brown people's fault. And well, that's a horrible, horrible fucking thing to say. I can understand why somebody who's in an emotionally stressful place and time in their life could easily be taken in by that.
And as my friend was telling me, he goes, some of the tactics that they use is, like the Klan used, was they give a false sense of community. And it's like, hey man, we're looking out for you. I know that really sucks that you got laid off or your business went under because you had to close down for COVID. But me and the Brotherhood, we like to help you and your family out so you can get by. Here's a couple $1,000s to get by. And when somebody is beaten down and they've lost just about everything and they're looking at losing their home and they don't know how to make that mortgage payment, and all of a sudden somebody comes to them and says, you know what, we want to help you out. You've been a brother to us. Let us support you. And then they give them the money to try to to pay their mortgages and everything else. So now they feel that they owe them, and they're like, so then they go to a couple more meetings and they slowly bring them into the fold. And the next thing you know, they're stockpiling weapons because it's a fun little thing, to be out there, shooting with your friends. I do it myself. I mean, I go out to to the range and and shoot with my friends. And
I tell them not to, not because I don't want them to, but because bullets are expensive. Become an archer.
Well, they are right now.
Dude.
You can get rich selling surplus ammunition.
One of his freaking guns, the bullets are like $1 a bullet. I'm like, become an archer, man. Shit's expensive.
I won't tell her the real price. So.
He thinks I don't know. I know. I'm like, the money, cost-saving tip for those of you who enjoy shooting. If you can afford the initial outlay, loading your own ammo can actually save you a ton.
I've actually looked into that, but the range won't let us police our own brass anymore.
What? That's bullshit.
Yeah, I know, right? They're making money by recycling the brass now.
Oh, those dicks.
I know. Yeah, we're not allowed to go out and police our own brass anymore. I'm like, unless it falls behind the wooden line, you can't go out into the range and pick up any brass anymore.
And let me guess, you might get shot.
No, well they call safety. The range officer calls timeout, and everybody puts down their weapons. Unloads. And then they give a couple minutes beforehand, so everybody then has to step back. So they make sure that they're not at the shooting point, up front, and then you can go out and change your targets and stuff like that, because they don't want half the people walking out there and the other half of them dumbasses. There's a lot of stupid people, when they at the gun ranges, but they won't let us. So here's the line, and you can police the brass that comes back this way, but if the brass goes even a foot on the other side of that little wooden barrier, you can't get it.
If you just go shooting out in the hills, they're going to tell you that you can't.
Yeah, but that's illegal. Where we
and
live,
I have never gone and done that.
Neither have I. But anyway, we have to stick with our subject. We always veer off our subject matter. So there are some really seriously twisted groups out there that believe in a lot of different conspiracy theories. They believe a lot of their, after a while, I was reading and checking out some of these groups, and after a while, they may start off with 1 point, or maybe they have 2 points they start off with, but after a while, man, they're drinking up their own crazy Kool-Aid at that point.
Lizard people aren't real.
Oh, I haven't even gotten into those people. Those conspiracies who believe everyone in politics is a lizard person from another
lizard person.
Huh?
Satanic lizard person.
Right. Yeah. Everybody from Chuck Schumer to Nancy Pelosi, they believe that those two are the king and queen of the lizard people, that they're reptilians. And there are actual people out there who believe really that anyone in politics is a reptilian, that they can unzip the human skin off them, but they're reptilian.
The zipper is below the collar line, so you can't see it.
No, it's actually, they believe it goes up around the top of the head, and then it folds this way and off. They said that's why Schumer and Pelosi have big hair. And I'm not joking, ladies and gentlemen. They believe that the more big hair on an individual, or teased out hair, that's to hide the zipper.
Does that mean literally every woman in the 80s was a lizard person?
Maybe. And now we have little reptilian babies everywhere. I don't know. I didn't message them to find out just how far they actually really believe.
Oh my God.
But they believe that the reptilian people are from another galaxy, and they have been here among us since the 1600s. And they have been in political power ever since then. So
our point for this whole entire video is
watch out for reptilians. Go ahead.
We want you guys to be safe. We want you guys to realize that that there are threats, that they have been deemed credible, and we want you guys to be safe. It's just here in 3 days? 4 days?
The 20th.
Yeah.
Whenever that is.
So please take the steps that you need to be safe. If you or a loved one works in law enforcement, we're thinking of you. And we understand that you've got a trying time coming up ahead, and we're keeping you in our thoughts, and we hope you come home safely.
Well, on top of that, again, you have the right to, to believe in whatever you want to believe in. But when your group or organization or you as an individual decide to take, action that is illegal or harmful to somebody else, or stripping their freedom, or taking their life, that's not right. Nobody ever gave you permission to kill somebody else. Or if you believe that you have to kill somebody, in order to save, yourself or your group. I mean, these people have made no threats to you directly. They are not doing anything. And in the political times and whatever, it doesn't matter when it has, has been. People have always found a reason to disagree, from one side of the aisle or the other. One party wins, the other side, believes that they've been cheated. They believe that there's been fraud. They don't believe that the election was valid. And then they go through, and then a couple of years later, they it kind of dies off, and then the other party wins, and then the other party thinks that they were cheated and fraud, and it just goes around and around. If you go back all the way to Abraham Lincoln's election, there were people here in America who believed that their votes were not counted correctly, that the election was stolen, and it has been the same thing over and over again. And that's part of who we are, is we have the freedom to be able to express that, our disbelief, our we don't like this party, or it doesn't. There's nowhere that says that you have the right to go ahead and do whatever the hell you want to somebody else because you believe in it. Especially taking illegal actions like that. So, if you're a member of one of these groups that I have listed here on this paper, sorry. What else is there?
That's it. Stay safe.